I think I was about 15 when this happened. My best friend Taylor and I were at a local park, which was a halfway point between our houses. We had spent the whole summer hanging out there, and we knew the area really well. We often hung out there around dusk, and on a rare occasion, after dark. I know that was really stupid of us, but we were young and dumb. Anyway, one night we were sitting on the swings at the playground when we heard someone emerge from some nearby bushes. Occasionally there would be someone out there walking their dog later in the evening. It was probably around 10 PM at that point, so we didn't think much of it. We were facing the direction of the bushes, and we realised that whoever had crawled out from them was no longer walking or moving at all. They were just standing there facing us. Taylor and I made eye contact briefly with that "oh, we're fucked" look in our eyes before slowly getting up and beginning to walk away from whoever it was. As we got up off the swings, I could make out the silhouette of a very large and well-built man. He was still standing totally motionless, but I knew that wouldn't last long. As Taylor and I began backing away, I whispered to her, "Okay, he's going to chase us. On 3, we start running and fucking screaming our heads off. I'm going to pull my knife out and have it ready if he grabs one of us, okay?" She nodded, and we began to speed walk. By this time, my suspicions had been confirmed, and I could hear this man's heavy footsteps behind us speeding up. "Okay," I whispered again. 1, 2, 3. We both broke out into full-blown sprints and just started screaming unintelligibly. Despite the screaming and running, I could still hear the man behind us and gaining on us. "The high school! Run to the fucking high school!" I screamed, and Taylor followed my lead. I knew the place would be well lit, and there were tons of houses lining the opposite side of the street. I figured the possibility of someone coming out of their house to check on us would possibly deter the creep who was chasing us, so it was worth a shot. By the time we reached the high school parking lot, we were both shaking and out of breath. We stopped screaming and scanned the area all around us, not seeing the man anywhere. Freaked the hell out, we decided to call Taylor's dad and have him come get us immediately. He was on his way anyway, but picked up speed and arrived in record time when we told him what had happened. I have no idea where the creep disappeared to or at what point in the chase he gave up, but I'm glad we didn't have to find out what his intentions were. We never stayed at that park after dark again. This happened almost a year ago, and it's all thanks to my little shit of a husky. She was a super cute 10-pound fluff ball at the time this happened. I was living in a pet-friendly apartment complex, and I just bought her. I picked her up around 10 AM that morning and went to visit my parents so they could meet her. I stayed all day and didn't arrive home until 8 or 8:30 PM. We walked in and I introduced her to the apartment, played with her, took her to pee and went to bed. During the night, she woke me up twice to pee and whined a bit since she was in a new environment. But she wasn't too loud, and I quickly calmed her down by putting her on my bed, and she crawled on my head and fell asleep. Since huskies are really active dogs, I decided to take her on her first walk on the sidewalk beside the building. As we started our walk, we passed the side of the building that shows the balconies. I lived on the 3rd floor. The guy who lives directly below me was standing on his balcony, filming me on his cell phone. I felt a bit weird about it, but I didn't think too much because the landlord has actually told me before he mentioned to her that he enjoyed me living above him because I was so quiet. Also, a lot of the tenants in the complex were having a fit over my husky and would just hold her and pet her whenever they saw her, so I thought he was just filming her to show to his friends or to talk about her later with me. I spent the whole day with her and getting her familiar with me and her new home. Night rolls around and I took her out before I went to bed around 11:30. I walked past a red car that was running, but didn't have its light on, so I couldn't see who was in the car. I didn't think much about it because it wasn't unusual for people to sit in their cars waiting on someone. I lived right beside a college, and there are many college students living in the building, so I thought maybe they were waiting for someone so they can head off to a party or something. While I didn't think much of it, I was still aware of my surroundings since I am a young woman alone at night. My puppy finally used the bathroom after 20 minutes of sniffing around, and I picked her up and walked past the car to go inside. The driver's side suddenly opens. A tall man steps out and yells,
"Are you allowed to have that dog?"
I turned around and noticed it was my neighbour. I replied, "Oh, yeah, you're allowed to have dogs here." I was confused as to why he was asking me that since he's lived here longer than me, but I answered him anyway. He points at my dog.
"No, you dumb bitch. Did you get permission from the landlord to have that thing?"
As soon as he cursed at me, I clenched the dog closer to my chest and just nodded, still confused and now frightened.
"Seriously? I know you're lying, bitch. You don't have permission. I videotaped you this morning and sent it to the landlord, and she said she has no clue about her."
I knew he was lying because I did tell the landlord about my dog, but I just hadn't paid the deposit yet since it was the weekend and the landlord was fine with that. So I explained to him, but he cursed at me more, calling me a lying bitch and talking about how we kept him up all day and night with her running around and stomping. I know that was impossible because a dog that size can't stomp or make noise to keep him up all night. She hasn't barked or howled and just whines at times, but that's not loud enough to keep him up all night. Especially since I was asleep next to her and I slept fine. I finally interrupted and apologized to cut the conversation short since he was just getting more angry as it went on. He pauses and says,
"Shut the fuck up. You don't mean that, and I'm calling the landlord tomorrow to report you and your dog. I swear if she keeps me up again tonight, I will fuck you and her up, bitch."
I freeze at that point because I know he means it. Even though we never had any problems until that day, I'd heard him harassing other neighbours, and he'd even pulled out a gun on one of them over their dogs. However, because he's buddy-buddy with the landlord, as in doing drugs and probably having sex with her, he's never gotten in any trouble. Despite being scared, my dumbass suddenly gets pissed off for getting threatened for no reason. I stammered out, "I have permission to have this dog, so I'll be there with you tomorrow when you try to report me. You're lying and upset because you hate dogs even though you live in a pet-friendly apartment, which was a stupid move on your part." Yes, I know I was stupid and the words just vomited out of my mouth. Suddenly the passenger door slings open. A woman steps out and shouts, "Bitch, just go on before we beat your ass. You ain't gonna do shit tomorrow but get rid of that goddamn dog." I didn't know there was someone else in his car as I was standing closer towards the driver's side. My fear completely took over and I just ran away and into the building. I was on the second floor landing when I heard the lobby doors slam and footsteps pounding up the stairs. I let out a scream and hurried up to the third floor, down the hallway and into my apartment. I locked all of the locks and put my door stopper against the doorknob. From outside my window, closer towards the end of the hall, I hear laughter, and then they walked away. I locked myself in my bedroom and cuddled my puppy as I cried. I stayed up all night, afraid they would try to break in and kill me and my dog. The next day, I called my mum to pick me up, and didn't come back until 2 weeks later when I moved out. I brought all of my male cousins for extra protection that day. In the end, I had to move in back with my parents. I'm just too afraid to live there now. I ended up getting my deposit and the last month of rent back. I never reported the couple because I didn't know their names and I just didn't want to be involved with them anymore. I also felt discouraged too because, as expected, my landlord practically took his side and just rushed the process for me to leave. She quickly gave my money back if I didn't involve her boss or the police. After that day, I learned she wasn't actually the landlord, but merely the apartment manager. Looking back, I wonder if I could sue. Anyway, to the crazy-ass fucking couple who ran me out of my apartment, let's not meet again. This happened not long after my 18th birthday. I was at a pretty low point in my life. My family and I had to move suddenly back to my grandpa's house. I was somewhat familiar with the area because we lived there when I was in middle school. I didn't really have friends there anymore though, and I often ended up going on long walks by myself and wouldn't come home until nighttime, like 10 or 11. Taking a walk was therapeutic to me and helped me clear my mind. One night, I walked about 45 minutes away from my house. It started getting pretty dark out, and I figured it would be best to turn around and start heading home. When I would go for a walk, I usually just walked down random streets and then would GPS my way back home. This time, however, I ended up making a wrong turn, and I was a little more than an hour away from my house before I realized. No big deal, it was nice out, and I just had to walk a little more. At this point, it's completely dark out, and I'm walking along a street that barely has any cars drive down it. There weren't really any homes on the street either. I'm minding my own business when a black car pulls up next to me. The window rolls down, and the man inside asks me if I work at the post office. I tell him no, and he says,
"You look like a girl that works there."
I said, "Sorry, that's not me," and start walking away. I get a few feet away and he pulls up next to me again. He starts talking to me and I'm trying not to make conversation. I just want to get home and away from him. He asks if I need a ride. I say no. I walk away. He pulls up to me a third time. This time, he asks how old I am. I'm terrified and I lie, telling him I'm 17. After I said that, he was like,
"Oh, you're 17.
I said, "Yeah, I'm 17. He said,
"Never mind."
and he drove away. I feel like if I had been honest and told him I was 18, he wouldn't have left me alone. The rest of my walk back home, I was so terrified of seeing that black car pull up next to me again.